Welcome, worthy educators, to our book study on Making Your School Irresistible with Jess Holloway and Carrie Bishop. Tonight, we're focusing on chapters 5, 6, and 7 in the book. There's a method to our madness. This is all very well planned out. We're covering believing in your team, igniting an internal flame, and building capacity. So looking forward to the hour. Jess and Carrie, take it away.
It's great to be back here again with you all for our second round of the book club. And I'm looking forward to diving into kind of the heart of the book. It is where we started actually in we didn't write in chronological order or sequential order. So we're looking forward to diving in this tonight. Now I'm going to get my sharing going. Hopefully my screen is going again. All right. So we are in session 2. And as in last time, you're welcome to, we always want to make sure we don't assume that everybody knows everybody. So you're welcome to drop this in the chat. I'll share verbally. I'm Jessica Holloway. I'm an instructional coach at Central High School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I am not the one you take to a seafood restaurant because animated movies ruined that for me when I was very young. I really liked The Little Mermaid. They were all my friends, Sebastian and Flounder. They were my buddies. I could not eat them. And then Nemo reinforced that with fish are friends, not food. So here I am. I am barely able to eat fish, but so I'm not the one you take to a seafood restaurant. So that's my introduction. Carrie, I will let you reintroduce yourself with this opener.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Carrie Bishop. I'm also in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I serve as a head of school at Point Christian Academy. And I am not the one you should ask for directions because I will get you lost. I get turned around very easily. I have other redeeming qualities, but being good at giving directions is not among my skill set.
I can confirm that for Carrie. I'm usually the navigator when we go places. So, hey, it's teamwork. We balance each other out. All right. So if you want to put that in the chat, if your hands are full and you're just listening in, that's okay too. But it is interesting. So often we share the things that are like, hey, last time it's hit me up if you need this. This time it's I am not the one for that. So we all have our strengths, but it helps build knowing who not to go to and who needs help on getting directions on where we need to go. So in chapter 5, we're getting into chapter 5 here. Really talks about believing in your team. And Carrie and I had lots of philosophical discussions at her kitchen island for a whole year as we work through this book and conversations about how often we really lean into this believing in our students, having the right mindset for our students to be successful, and how often we forget to translate that as leaders in the school to have that same sort of belief for the teachers that we believe all of them can be successful and our role and what's our role in that. So trying to take a moment to think of a time with a leader or even a colleague, because when we talk about making an irresistible school culture, it doesn't mean singularly that the leader does all these things. The leader helps creates the condition, and there's lots of leaders within the building, formal and informal, that help make this. So thinking about a time a colleague or a leader showed that they truly believed in you, and like what was that impact? And so sometimes, sometimes it's very much you need someone else to notice something in you that you may not recognize in yourself. And I had that experience when I when I was teaching here in Chattanooga, and I was kind of doubting myself in some ways, but then carrying on as a teacher. And I had a district coach came in and observed my class a couple of times and kind of just nudged me to like, hey, there's a literacy conference coming up. You ought to like share this with other people. It's, going well in your classroom. Why don't you, share your wisdom? And what I thought was just what I was supposed to do. I didn't realize it was something worth sharing. And having that person kind of nudge me to go share what I'd been doing kind of launched a whole other side of education I didn't realize of like, wow, like other people want to talk about practice that you're doing in your classroom. Like what I'm doing is worth talking about. And so having someone kind of nudge me really did help move that forward. So I don't know if you're welcome to drop it in the chat. If you've got an example of that, or Carrie, if you want to think of an example of where you've received some nudging and some belief, or where you provided that for another educator at a critical time.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's one of the really important things we do for each other as educators is encourage one another and use our words to build each other up for sure. And sometimes coming alongside someone and just being present is also an encouragement. Um, so I can probably share an example of early in my career, probably in my second year of teaching. I had several people who encouraged me and acknowledged that they believed that there was a calling on my life and that they saw evidence that one day I could, be a school leader. Specifically, I taught at a small rural school and I taught first grade. And in my second year of teaching, the teachers in that building selected me to be their teacher of the year for the school. It was a huge honor. And then they took it a step further because, it was nice that they voted for me. They could see my passion, they could see the hours I was putting in, and I always was asking questions and advice. But then they took it a step further, and when I was selected to be, teacher of the year, then you went into like the district competition. And all of them just surrounded me and wanted to make sure that when the people came to visit and watch me teach, that I had everything I needed and I had thought through my lesson. And I ended up being the district teacher of the year for a large school district, K-12, in my second year of teaching. It was remarkable, but really it was a testimony to the community at the school that I was at and how they all were pouring into me and helping me grow. And I have for many years loved being an instructional coach before I became a school leader, and being able to come alongside teachers and help them live out their calling is one of the greatest joys of my life for sure.
I was responding in the chat. We have a familiar name over here sharing some insights, and this, I mean, I know this person doesn't like to call it spotlight, but I know the person that's in this chat leaving some comments has been the I believe in you person for a lot of educators. And she is still talked about in the community in which we are, about how much she had high expectations, but high beliefs and high support for people. And I know because I was one of those people that she believed in and encouraged. So, and that is true sometimes. You don't realize little things can have such a big impact and a lingering impact too, because sometimes you don't realize something you say doesn't really hit that person till years later and it comes back around. But thinking about like how can we create that same environment and that same feeling for other people. So I know in the way in which I tried to pay it forward is encouraging other educators to share their voice and their expertise in various ways, whether it's presenting at professional development, writing blogs or articles, even if it's just sharing at a staff development within your own school, your own department. I really do try to encourage others, and I'll send them like, hey, the call for proposals is open for this, or hey, have you thought about writing for this? This seems like something you could lend your expertise to. So trying to nudge people and saying like, hey, you should consider this. You have something to share. Letting them know like I believe in the work that they're doing. And so that's kind of how I'm trying to create that for others, because it had such a big impact on me. So feel free to share if you've got any ideas on like how you can create that kind of environment for others as well. Yes, collaboration is really big, finding the space for that. It's hard to encourage others if you don't know what's going on with others. So having that space for collaboration and conversations really is important. And I would even say getting out of your building or your district or whatever you have tunnel vision on, getting out of your comfort zone, I think definitely can help you see like opportunities and what's out there. All right, we're gonna get over to chapter 6. And when we start thinking about igniting internal flame, we want to make sure that we're not burning out teachers. And I know that's used so much, so I kind of even hate to say it. But what keeps you going? Like what keeps you moving forward? Like what are ways that you can take things that you're passionate about and bring them into your personal passions and your professional goals, and like how can you bridge that together so work doesn't feel as heavy, or you find little sparks of joy in the work that you're doing. So one thing I do share in here, you know, and thinking about things that I'm passionate about, like I like to read, and I like to go visit national parks and things like that. So, you know, as a language arts teacher, getting kids to read was not always the most enjoyable thing. Reading is not valued as much as it used to be, not when you have endless, you know, streaming services and other things to watch and scroll through social media. And so like I was getting very like frustrated on how do I get kids to read, like, and not just read the assignment, but like read a book for pleasure, because at the end of it all, I just wanted my kids to have a love of learning and a love for reading. Like that transcends any other data point I can have. So I decided to try out a thing called Camp Read a Lot. And so we would put out tents, or these little, I don't know which one, like 10 by 10. I don't know what you call them, but you know, those little coverings you're at sporting events and whatnot. I know there's a name for them, but I can't think of the name. It'll come to me like 2 hours from now. But coverings, we had parents, you know, I reached out to parents, they helped bring some out. We had tents that would be set up. We brought out like, you know, lawn chairs and whatnot, and snacks, campfire snacks. And for the entire class period, students just camped out and read a book. And I invited parents to join us. They could bring a book and read. I invited other teachers to come and read if they were on planning at that time. And it kept me from being so frustrated as a teacher because I got to share, like, this is reading should be for enjoyable as well. And for some students, they never get just that amount of time to just read. Now, some of them were they squirrely and I had to redirect them. I'm like, eat another piece of popcorn and get back to reading. Yes. But at the same time, every quarter we had a celebration where we camped out and read and we just celebrated being a community of readers. And so like that was something that I always looked forward to. It was something that my kids like to talk about. It was something like parents were like, hey, we're ready to bring the tent back out for camp. And some of the parents never stayed, but at least brought the tent out for me and would come pick it back up. So, but that for me was one way where I could take like my personal passions and bring it into the work that I was doing with students. So, Carrie, would you like to share any of this or what you've seen work for other people that you've worked alongside?
Sure. Yeah, I would say it's similar for most educators. Um, I know I can think of a high school English teacher who got to do a club that was the guitar club, and he really enjoyed connecting with students in that way, and that really helped him connect and get them to read things they might not would have otherwise read. But because, he was teaching them guitar and they were kind of jamming out together during second block, it really helped. And I also think that it kind of fed his soul in ways and kept his energy up and helped him build connections that were authentic. I've also seen, I've had good luck. I had a faculty meeting today, and one of the things we talked about were we went back to our mission statement. What are the three words that, stand out? And then we talked about where have you seen this lived out this week? And so storytelling and holding space for reflection where we can celebrate what is happening that is good, because sometimes it's so easy for us like to stay focused on our to-do list, which is never going to be done, not all of it, and then just starting to feel kind of like overwhelmed or like we're not enough. And we can choose to train ourselves to focus on the good. And so today it was just really great to hear people talk about those stories and those moments. And I think that it does us all good to hear those. So I think that can help if you're starting to feel a little fatigued. It can really help energize.
Yeah, and this chapter also makes me think about um, it's conversations I've had with other educators lately. There's a lot of conversation around our first 5 year in the profession educators. We talk about them and getting how to keep them in the profession. So there's lots of, new teacher programs, mentoring, but there's not a lot of conversations around the last 5 year teachers. And I really want to like not overlook those last 5 year teachers because some of them you could probably get 7 years out of them and not just 5 years. And some of them aren't ready to retire, but they don't feel valued anymore. And so when we direct in unintentionally, because a lot of things have unintended consequences of putting so much focus on one end and we forget the other end, we don't recognize the importance of making sure like they still feel mentored, growed. Oh my gosh, you can tell it's been a long week already. Feel like they're being grown and cultivated and still connected in the profession. Because sometimes it can feel like, oh, they're on the end of retirement. We'll just, let them be. When I know several that get to retirement, they're like, I'm not ready yet. Like I'm young, I still got time to teach, and we want to keep we want to keep educators in the profession. We don't, like, if they're not ready to retire, we don't want to push them out because they feel ignored or undervalued. So thinking about like how we can make sure our getting towards the end of their career, teachers feel, because also we want them igniting that eternal flame for the teachers who are coming after them as well. There's a lot of value in there. And the same can be said for those that are in the middle. So just thinking about, igniting that flame for everybody, no matter kind of where they are. But just remembering, as like we know that there are particular needs for beginning teachers and even like second career teachers, because we're having a lot more of those in the profession, making sure they feel connected, but not ignoring the ones that you have too, the ones that you have and that you want to keep, and making sure, because their needs are probably different, but still recognizing that there are needs to be done there. So it's a conversation. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers, but that's a conversation that I've been having a lot lately, about, because I continuously hear about new teacher programs, and not that they're not valuable, but I just wonder, how our near retirement teachers are feeling, and are they being valued and connected and invested in as they continue to grow. Carrie, do you want to add anything to that, or?
I mean, I think that when it comes to like investing in teachers, when you're in a leadership position, you're tasked with investing and growing all of your teachers and staff. So we're in a people business. So our job is always going to be to invest and grow everyone, whether that's students or teachers. I would also say, at the school that I serve at, we partner with parents. And so our goal is to help grow everyone. Um, and and one of the ways we do that is by listening to them and listening to what they want. And so with teachers, if we kind of listen to what are their longings, um, you know, I know that we talked about lighting an eternal flame. Sometimes one of the ways you do that is listen to what they really long for. What are their losses? What are they struggling with? And so I think, by listening a lot of times and then helping people, you know, grow. I know I had a teacher in my office after school talking about something, and she needed to advocate for herself with a colleague. And so it was really a matter of, I can help you with this part, but ultimately at one point, this is going to be about her growing. She's very, very young, and she's got a lot of years to negotiate with colleagues and collaborate and learn how to say what needs to be said to get her needs met and her students' needs met. And so it's about just coaching people and helping people grow. And I'm still growing and learning myself, so I appreciate people pouring into me as well.
Absolutely. Which ties very nicely into chapter 7, which gets into building capacity. And the thing about, good leadership is, when you can create more leaders, that's a sign of good leadership. And so consider, how are you building the capacity of others to be leaders? And we do address in this chapter that also does mean letting people move on from your school. Like at times, they're ready to grow, and their growth leads them out of your building. However, if you do it right, when they leave the building, they're going to be ambassadors for the kind of leadership that you have and the kind of environment you've created at your school, that's going to make other people want to go and be there. So they can also have that same experience and be, grown as a leader. Unfortunately, I think there are some leaders who have a hard time letting go, and maybe can delay or deter growth for some of their strongest staff, and that usually doesn't end well. And it's, you know, unintended, like it's flattering to know you're so, you know, valuable and needed, but it's really hard when you know you want to move forward and you're not being supported in that decision for whatever reason. So, you know, making more leaders does bring some sort of like ambassador to you and the kind of leader that you are, and be like, yeah, they gave me so many opportunities to grow and I was ready. They were right there supporting me to move forward. But I'm thinking about this one um, in your professional goals. Sometimes we keep those hidden to ourselves, like we know what they are, or we filled them out in a form, or they're in some platform somewhere of what we're working on. But how can we deprivatize that and share that with colleagues? And how can we say, can you help me with this? Like, can you keep me accountable? Can you provide me mentoring? So I'm participating in an aspiring assistant principal program this year. And the staff that I work with now knows it. And like I'm getting support within my building, and hey, can I have this opportunity to learn here from this person that's in the building on things that they do? But I'm inviting others in to help me continue to grow and look for opportunities to, you know, reach and grow and make those goals happen, move from, you know, idea to action in that. So so thinking about that, let's try to, you know, share publicly if you feel comfortable, like what's a professional goal that you have for this year and how can others help you achieve that? And maybe it's like resources. Maybe do you know there's this fellowship out there? Do you know there's this professional organization? Or you should really talk to this person who's had experience. So let's try to create a community of learning and growing, and share what your goal is for the year. And I'll give everybody a moment if they want to share in the chat. And Carrie, if you want to share, and yours can't be to survive, because you're thriving, not surviving over there. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a range of things when you're thinking about how to help others, you know, achieve professional goals. And some don't cost any money. You know, sometimes it's just getting creative with schedules. So if you have people who want to, you know, expand their strategy toolbox, and just want to see other people in their building, that's great. Get creative with the schedule. That doesn't really cost anything. You know, sometimes people are like, well, we can't afford to do a book study or go somewhere or do something. There are other ways to help people reach professional goals that don't cost anything, or maybe are more cost effective, and thinking about how you might be able to achieve that. So, like I said, I would recommend deprivatizing your goal setting and asking people how they could possibly help hold you accountable, or if they have ideas that that could possibly be things that you hadn't thought of, or that might invite conversations into other things that you hadn't considered that would be good for you to learn and grow. And I will say sometimes experiences will help you realize things that aren't for you. Um, I had the realization I had an opportunity to grow in an area um, and learn about education policy. That's not for me. I mean, I learned a lot, but I was like, yeah, this this is not my skill set. This is not where I want to go, but I still had a learning experience. And we need to, as leaders, understand like some people might have the experience and go, oh, this is not for me. Like I understand this more clearly. This is not the path that I want to go down. And I think sometimes we see that in people who are considering school leadership and they're like, yeah, I belong in the classroom and there's nothing wrong. And I try to tell people there's nothing wrong with being a career classroom teacher. Like you don't have to do anything else to prove anything else. Don't just say I was just a classroom teacher. Being the classroom teacher is the most important job in the building. So there's nothing wrong with saying the classroom, but still build your capacity to be a leader from your classroom. So there's lots of different ways of doing that. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that you can look for opportunities to build capacity in people in certain areas, and they realize that's not their strength, and so that's okay. That's okay too. It's kind of, you know, failing forward, and it's better to know now than to take a job and then realize, oh dear, that is not the reality of the idea of the job that I had made up in my head that this is how it's going to be. And we don't want that to be like where there's regret in deciding to do certain things. Sorry, I just got hit by a dart by my child. It's okay. Boy, mom life over here. Carrie, do you have anything to add before I kind of switch gears?
I would just say when you think about professional goals, don't just think about roles. Don't just think about, am I in the classroom or am I here? I saw someone commented about writing something, writing an article. Um, there are a lot of ways that you like when you think about professional goals, there's a lot of ways that could look as you're serving in whichever type of situation you're in. So, one of my professional goals this year is to do a weekly reflection, and I've been doing that. I kind of created this little uh, form, it's a Google form, and actually it has been so beneficial, and I have enjoyed thinking about it. I look forward to doing it each week. It really helps me process things. And I shared it, one of my teachers 2 Thursdays in a row had come to me and she was just exhausted and kind of overwhelmed. And I shared my reflection practice with her. And I was like, so one thing that I do on Fridays that really helps me, and it also helps me kind of see like one of the questions asks like, how aligned do I feel with my calling right now? And it's like on a Likert scale of 1 to 5. And, it kind of allows me to just be like self-aware of how I'm feeling because, I don't want to operate based on feelings. And so it also allows me to think about like what's going well, and it draws my attention and holds space for me to do some reflecting. And so I shared that with one of my teachers recently, and she was so excited about the practice. And so when you think about professional goals and ways that you want to grow, those don't just mean like advancing your career. Professional goals can be like growing in lots of ways that are going to build your capacity, whether that's just to be more present in whatever role you're in and just give your very best and be the best version of yourself. And so it could also be a professional goal related to I'm learning a lot about classical Christian education, a lot of strategies, and I'm doing a lot of reading. So, you may be learning something specific. STEM may be the focus. I'm learning a lot about accreditation. So there's a lot of things to learn. That's one of my favorite parts about being in education is there's always something new to learn. And so professional goals, I would just keep the category very broad and consider what it is that you might be curious about right now.
All right, so we're going to connect part of what we talked about in in these chapters and go through the design thinking process of how we can prioritize people to solve challenges. Now I'm gonna move you through the process, which is you'll want to slow down to do it right, but we're gonna walk you through the process and give you an organizer that you can take back and try out the process with the people that you work with. So in thinking about design thinking, and I will say this, if you're a design thinking purist, I'm sorry, I didn't do it the traditional way. I should say it's inspired by design thinking. That's probably the way to put it. But I just dropped the organizer. It'll ask you to make a copy. But really design thinking is about how might we, whatever we're wanting to do. So we want to start with a problem, but after that, we want to prioritize the people that impacts, come up with a vision of what we would want the outcome to be, ideate possible solutions, and then get feedback. So this is like, we're gonna co-create solutions to things that are happening in our school. So where to start? We're gonna start with identifying a challenge. And sometimes we start really broad, and sometimes we try to tackle things that are too big instead of narrowing it down and something that's more manageable. So like a big picture thing is like, we're not getting the academic results that we want. Well, let's try to define and refine what we really mean when we say that. Is there a specific grade level, content area? And if it's everywhere, you're going to need to narrow the focus, because you can't tackle big things. We want to have small success that we can scale out. So for an example, you can narrow it down like our 6th grade math scores. We notice that there's that transition dip from elementary school to middle school, and like what's happening there. It's not meeting the expectations and the goals that we have set. And then this is the piece that sometimes we forget to do. We forget to prioritize the people and empathize with what they are experiencing. So we need to think about like people who are directly involved in that. These are probably people that need to be the co-creators of the decision. So if I'm talking about our 6th grade math scores, 6th grade math teachers are directly involved with that. I need to understand what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. They need to be part of the co-creating the solution in that. Also, there's probably support staff with special education teachers, maybe English language support teachers that are also in those classrooms. And not just the teachers, students, 6th grade students, probably they're directly involved in this as well. So considering how students can be co-creators of the solution in this. And then we can think about people who are impacted. So this might be where students fit in, the receivers of the solution. It might also be other teachers, support staff. And then if we think about people who are indirectly involved, so they can contribute to the solution and or benefit from the solution. So indirectly involved, it could be those 5th grade teachers that have the students before they ever get to 6th grade. It could be the 7th grade teachers who are going to get those kids after they're in 6th grade. It could be other grade level content teachers. So thinking about the people that are involved in addressing this challenge that we have in the school. So on the organizers, there's boxes for you to think about who those people would be and who you might want to be co-creators, who you might want some, just input, and who you might want to inform of things that you're doing, different kind of levels of involvement going through this process.
Hey, Jessica.
Yeah.
The Google Doc that you dropped in the chat,
Do
It,
I need to update the permissions?
yes, please. And I don't have access to it, or I would do it quietly on the side, but I'm sorry.
It's okay. Look, see, we all help each other here. Okay. Somebody refresh and tell me if that fixed it before I get off this page.
Yes, that works. Everyone can make it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Wonderful. See, that's why you need people to tell you when your stuff's not working. Okay, so on this, we want to do some vision casting. And so with that, we want to think about what do we want the outcome to be? And not just the outcome, but also because Carrie always goes back to the storytelling piece, and I need her to keep telling me about this. But what do you want people to be saying if you're so successful? Because that's how you know it's reached some level. So what do you want to hear people saying? Like, oh, and it may be like sixth grade teachers being like, oh, did you notice how better the math scores got on our last assessment? Maybe it's the students saying, hey, I wasn't as frustrated this week when I was in math class. Or maybe it's, we want those seventh grade teachers to be like, man, we're going to have to step up our game. These sixth grade students are coming to us like, really on it with math. So, casting that vision of what you want people saying and the outcomes that you want, and not just student data outcomes, like maybe it's teacher practice outcomes. And then once you have an idea of um, what you want it to be, ideate solutions. And so you can do that by starting with, are there any schools showing strong success in that area? Because you don't always need to go out and recreate the wheel, so to speak. So look at where this is working. It may or may not work for you. It may be something that's like, oh, I can take this piece of it, but I can't do everything. Or you might have to consider what might be a new or innovative solution. What is something nobody has thought about, but wondering if this might work. So you can ideate what exists and you can come up with new ideas as well. And that's just something you talk through. And it's in the beginning, it's a yes and put all the ideas out there, and then you kind of filter them through what's reasonable and feasible to try out and do. Once we get through that, that's when you get to, after you've ideated, then you go and try it out. And sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not, but then you're going to know don't do that. And so this is where you do have to acknowledge and have space for taking risk and moments of failure that will propel you, as long as you don't stay there, as long as you realize like, this is what we learned from this about our students, about our teaching practice, and here's what we're gonna do moving forward. I don't really see it as a failure. I feel like that's data. It's informing you of what you need to do in your classroom. So working through this process, you kind of have to go slow to go fast, but hopefully it can shift our mindset from, just like focusing so much on challenges that we have, and start getting into this habit of like, how might we address this? Who might we need to have in this conversation? Who do we need to have considerations for when we're ideating solutions? So this process can kind of help us work through that. Carrie, did I forget anything? She said no.
I can't think of anything that you forgot.
Okay.
I think sometimes we don't do our best thinking in isolation. So maybe as you're thinking about this, if there's someone that has proven to be a good thought partner, I know last time we talked about who we work well with and what we need to round us out. And I just think as you're thinking through this, there's always, we all have our own blind spots, and they're called blind spots for a reason. So it's good if you have a collaborative thought partner.
Yes, and that's very true. And I would often say people that you feel most irritated by at times are the people that you need to include on this, because sometimes we end up around people that think like us. And so when you get into everybody with a similar mindset, like Carrie said, you get blind spots, but then you also get like false positives, like, oh yeah, this is a great idea because nobody is thinking the way this other person thinks. And so it do definitely challenge you to include a range of voices, and you can have different voices come in at different times. It doesn't mean you have 10 voices at the beginning. It can have layers of feedback and input to help shape what you're doing. All right, we have reached the end of this one. We do have an opportunity for you to move your ideas to action. So the second phase is in Huddle Up. If you want to choose to participate, all that information will be in there if you want to participate in that platform to keep the learning going. We do have our contact list in our Google site information here, and we will be moving into the last session of our book club, going to the beginning of the book and looking at chapters 1 and 2. So that will be happening next month.
So Jess and Carrie, thank you. Wonderful stuff. For all of you that are registered, you're automatically registered for session 3. Bring a friend. We'll have the new link up for the October 23rd session right after this, and we'll get this recording out, and we will see you on Huddle Up.